Your home doesn't need a before guests arrive cleaning sprint. Danish homes are built to stay guest-ready constantly, without anyone ever announcing a cleaning day. And it has nothing to do with owning fewer things or buying better storage. 6 specific habits, and I'm giving you all of them right now. None of what's coming requires a single purchase. Not one organizer, not one storage bin, not one product. This is entirely about sequence and timing, not equipment. Here's the thread connecting all 6. A guest-ready home was never the result of effort spent cleaning. It's the result of 6 small habits that quietly prevent mess from ever reaching a state that needs cleaning at all. If this is already reframing how you think about your own home, go ahead and hit like and subscribe if you're new here. This channel exists to hand you the real system behind Nordic living, and it genuinely helps to have you here for the rest of it. Habit 1. The zero surface dwell rule. Any flat, visible surface, counter, table, entryway shelf, gets one job only: passing through, not storing. An item is allowed to sit on that surface for the duration of active use and no longer. The mail gets opened and sorted at the counter, not left on it. A cup is used, then returned to the cabinet, not left beside the sink, for later. The mechanism. Surfaces are the first thing anyone's eyes register entering a room, and they're also where clutter accumulates fastest, because setting something down just for a second carries almost zero friction compared to actually putting it away. The fix. Treat every flat surface as a transit zone, never a storage zone. If something's been sitting on a counter for more than the time it takes to actually use it, it's out of compliance with this rule. Full stop. Habit 2. Fixed address storage. Applied strictly. Every object gets one specific named location, not a general area, not somewhere in that drawer. A single exact spot. The same way a postal address identifies one building, not a neighborhood. Keys hang on one specific hook. Chargers live in one specific drawer compartment. The technical benefit: retrieval and put away both become zero decision actions. You're not evaluating where something goes each time. The decision was already made once, permanently, and every subsequent interaction with that object is pure execution, not decision-making. This matters because decision fatigue compounds across a day. Every "where does this go" moment, repeated dozens of times daily, draws on the same limited cognitive resource. Fixed addressing removes that resource cost entirely from object management. Habit 3. Acquisition filtering. Controlling what enters the home, not just managing what's already inside it. Before any non-essential item comes into the house, it passes through one question. What specific, named function does this serve? And what existing item does it replace or improve on? Danish households apply this consistently at the point of purchase, not after the fact during a decluttering session. The mechanism. Managing clutter after it accumulates is reactive and effortful. Filtering what enters in the first place is proactive and nearly effortless by comparison, because it happens once at the moment of acquisition, rather than repeatedly during every future cleaning session. The technical principle: prevention scales far better than remediation. One filtered decision at the door replaces dozens of future decisions about what to do with an item that never should have entered the home to begin with. These 3 habits function as the input layer: what enters your home, where it lives once it's there, and how surfaces stay clear, moment to moment. The next 3 operate on a different timescale, daily and weekly maintenance protocols that keep the first 3 from ever degrading. Habit 4, the 5-minute evening reset protocol executed at a fixed time each night, not whenever there's time. The protocol itself is simple and mechanical. Cushions straightened, surfaces cleared per habit 1. Any object not at its fixed address per habit 2 returned to it. The technical value isn't in the 5 minutes themselves. It's in the compounding prevention. A home reset nightly never accumulates enough disorder to require an extended cleaning session, because the maximum possible mess at any point is capped at roughly 1 day's worth, not 1 week's. Skip the reset for even 3 consecutive nights, and the accumulated disorder grows non-linearly, not just additively, because each day's mess makes the next day's reset harder to actually execute, creating a feedback loop that a nightly protocol prevents from ever starting. Habit 5, the threshold protocol at the entryway. Treat it as a hard, non-negotiable boundary rather than a soft preference. Outdoor shoes stop at a specific point. A mat, a step, a designated zone, before any further entry into the home. Bags and coats get placed at their fixed address, per habit 2, immediately upon entry, not carried further into the house first. The mechanism. This single boundary point does double duty, physically limiting outdoor contamination transfer to the flooring and simultaneously preventing the bag dropped by the door, coat over a chair. Pattern that habit 1 is specifically designed to prevent. Enforcing this boundary consistently at one physical location is significantly more effective than trying to enforce the zero surface dwell rule after items have already dispersed throughout multiple rooms. And habit 6, distributed zone ownership, applied specifically in shared households. Rather than one person managing the entire home's maintenance, each household member is assigned specific zones or object categories as their direct responsibility, not as chores assigned top-down, but as designated ownership, the way a specific employee owns a specific process, rather than a task being generically everyone's job, which functionally means no one's. The technical principle. Diffused responsibility produces inconsistent execution because no single person is accountable for any specific outcome. Named ownership, even informally divided, produces measurably more consistent maintenance than shared, undefined responsibility across a household. Here's the full system together. Surfaces treated as transit zones. Never storage. Every object with one fixed address. Acquisition filtered before entry, not managed after. A 5-minute reset executed nightly, at a fixed time, without exception. A hard threshold boundary at the entryway, and clearly assigned zone ownership in any shared household. None of these 6 require a single purchased product. What they require is consistent execution of a system, which is a fundamentally different resource demand than the sporadic, high-effort cleaning sessions most households default to instead. A system executed consistently at low intensity produces a more reliably guest-ready home than an inconsistent system executed occasionally at high intensity. The same total effort, distributed completely differently, produces a categorically different result. If you're implementing this system for the first time, the technical sequence that produces fastest results is Habit 2 first. Establishing fixed addresses for your most used items, because this makes habit 1 significantly easier to execute once there's an obvious away location for anything found on a surface. Habit 5 second, because a controlled entry point reduces the volume of items requiring management inside the home at all. Habit 4 third, once the first 2 are functioning, because the nightly reset becomes dramatically faster once most items already have a designated home to return to. Habits 1, 3, and 6 can be layered in progressively as the core system stabilizes. Tell me in the comments which of these 6 habits is currently the weakest link in your own home. I read every single comment. And if you know someone who's exhausted from cleaning sprints before every visit, send this to them. A guest-ready home was never about more effort. It's about a system that prevents the mess from accumulating in the first place. Let's troubleshoot each habit individually, because knowing the mechanism doesn't guarantee smooth execution. Each one has a specific, predictable failure point worth addressing directly. Habit 1, the zero surface dwell rule, fails most commonly at exactly 1 location: the kitchen counter, specifically during meal preparation and immediately after. The technical issue is that active cooking genuinely requires temporary surface use, and the rule can be misapplied as nothing ever touches a surface, which isn't the actual protocol. The rule is about dwell time, not surface contact itself. The fix: define a maximum acceptable dwell time explicitly, rather than leaving it as a vague intention. A reasonable technical standard is same session clearance. Anything placed on a surface during an activity gets cleared by the end of that same activity, not carried over into the next one. A cutting board used for dinner prep gets washed and returned before the meal is finished being eaten, not left until later. Habit 2, fixed address storage, fails most commonly during the initial setup phase, when addresses are assigned but not communicated to other household members, or when an address is chosen that's inconvenient relative to actual use patterns. The technical error here is optimizing for tidiness rather than for retrieval frequency. Assigning a hard-to-reach address to a frequently used item guarantees the system will be abandoned within days, because the friction of compliance exceeds the friction of simply setting the item down elsewhere. The fix: address assignment should be inversely proportional to distance from point of use. The item you use daily gets the most convenient address available, even if that address is less visually tidy than a more distant option. A charger used every night belongs within arm's reach of where charging actually happens, not in a drawer across the room, regardless of how that drawer photographs. Habit 3, acquisition filtering, fails most predictably under specific purchase conditions. Gifts received from others, impulse purchases made outside your normal routine, and bulk or discount purchases, where the good deal framing bypasses the filtering question entirely. Gifts present a particular technical challenge because the filtering question, what function does this serve? What does it replace? Wasn't asked before the item entered your possession. It arrived already inside the system, the fix for gifts specifically. Apply the filter retroactively within a defined window, typically 30 days, rather than exempting gifted items from the system permanently. If a gift hasn't found genuine daily or weekly use within that window, it gets reassigned, donated, repurposed, or given a fixed address in low priority storage, rather than remaining indefinitely as an unfiltered exception. Habit 4, the 5-minute evening reset, fails most commonly not from skipped nights, but from scope creep. The 5-minute protocol gradually expanding into a longer task as it's executed, until it no longer feels achievable on tired evenings, at which point it starts getting skipped entirely. The technical cause: without a hard time boundary, a quick reset naturally expands to address every visible imperfection, rather than executing the specific, limited protocol defined in Habit 4. The fix: use an actual timer, not an estimate. When it stops, the reset stops, regardless of what remains. An incomplete 5-minute reset executed consistently outperforms an inconsistent 15-minute reset that gets abandoned on exhausted nights, because consistency, not thoroughness, is the variable actually preventing long-term accumulation. Habit 5, the entryway threshold, fails most commonly with guests and children, both of whom haven't internalized the boundary the way the primary household members have. The technical issue isn't enforcement difficulty. It's that the threshold protocol depends on it being obvious without explanation, and for anyone unfamiliar with the specific home, it isn't automatically obvious. The fix: make the boundary physically self-evident rather than relying on a verbal reminder every time. A visible mat, a slight change in flooring material, or a small bench specifically positioned at the boundary all communicate this is where outdoor items stop, without requiring anyone to ask or be told. For children specifically, a low, easily reachable hook at their height, positioned exactly at the threshold, produces significantly higher compliance than an adult height hook that requires help to use. Habit 6, distributed zone ownership, fails most commonly due to unequal or unclear initial assignment, particularly in households where zones weren't explicitly divided, but were simply assumed based on who happened to notice mess most often, which typically results in one person accumulating disproportionate responsibility without any formal agreement to that effect. The technical fix: zone assignment should be an explicit, discussed division, not an informal pattern that emerged by default. Each zone or category should have exactly one named owner, and ownership should be periodically reviewed and can be reassigned if the initial division proves unbalanced, rather than treated as a permanent, unchangeable structure. A written or verbally confirmed division, revisited monthly in the early stages, produces measurably more consistent compliance than an assumed division that was never actually agreed upon by all parties involved. There's a broader technical point underlying all 6 failure patterns. Every one of them traces back to a system component that wasn't made explicit enough at setup. Vague dwell time expectations, inconvenient addresses, ungated exceptions for gifts, elastic time boundaries, silent thresholds, and assumed rather than assigned ownership. Each failure mode is a version of the same underlying issue, which is a rule that exists as an intention rather than as a specific, defined protocol. The general troubleshooting principle: whenever any of these 6 habits stops functioning, the fix is almost never more effort or more discipline. It's returning to the specific definition of the rule and identifying where it was left implicit rather than explicit, then making that boundary concrete again. For anyone implementing this system in a genuinely small space, a studio apartment, a single shared room, the 6 habits still apply without modification. But habit 2, fixed addressing, becomes proportionally more important relative to the others, because small spaces have less capacity to visually absorb items without a designated address before disorder becomes immediately apparent. In a larger home, an object without a fixed address might go unnoticed in a spare room for weeks. In a small space, the same unaddressed object is visible within your direct field of view almost immediately. Prioritizing habit 2. First, and applying it with more granularity than might feel necessary in a larger space, tends to produce disproportionately better results in genuinely small footprints.